Hello, I'm Doug Henschen, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering everything that takes you from data to decisions.
And I am Andy Thurai. Yep, that's Thurai with an AI, VP and Principal Analyst covering the AI and ML space for Constellation Research. And we are your co-hosts for episode 17 of the Constellation Research TV.
This is the Enterprise Tech Show where our analysts share the latest news, trends, and features on the enterprise. And joining us a little bit later in the show will be our colleague, Liz Miller.
That's right, Doug. We will start with a recap of enterprise news. And then, Doug, you will share a preview of your upcoming market view research report, right? On the high-scale analytical data platforms, including data warehouse, data lake, and the brand new emerging category of lakehouse platforms.
Yes, the big lake house. And in our third segment, Andy is going to recap his latest shortlist on incident management products. And in our final segment, Liz Miller will join me for Constellation Dance Card. That's a quick look at some of the tech events we'll be attending as the fall conference season gets underway. But let's start with that news summary. Andy, what is up in your world since the last episode of CRTV?
There's a bunch of things to talk about in AI, but I wanted to, pick up probably a couple of topics that I want to discuss. The first one that I want to talk about, maybe I can title that as AI becomes more human kind of topic. So, it's always, people in the past used to think that, the AI systems, the computers may or may not pass what's called the Turing test for the longest time. Turing test is the true test of, whether or not a machine can pass as a human, right? And now I'm looking at a bunch of things that came out just last few weeks, over the course of a few weeks. And I'm looking at that, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? We are not that far off. I'll give you a couple of examples. You heard about the open AI, the so-called open source or limited source profit programs, right? The GPTV and the things. So they, way back when, being about a year ago, they introduced what's called MuseNet, which is actually a deep neural network program which can compose music. The way they did that was that, they looked at the models, let it learn from about 1.2, 1.5 billion music snippets, and then they learned pretty good. Now they introduced what they call it as a jukebox, which is an open source algorithm with a vocal infusion. I listened to a couple of songs that is produced by that program. Especially there was this the country music, which was composed originally by itself. They gave it a genre and then say, which kind of voice you want to go after. It produced a stunning 3-minute clip. You couldn't tell the difference between, whether it's created by a human or not. And a couple of other things that are coming out is the Israeli company AI21 that introduced a new program called the Jurassic 1 Jumbo, as you might know. That actually, went through all of the existing linguistical stuff all over the internet, learned from it. To an extent, it's more like a next version or updated version of the GPT-3 by OpenAI. So you could use that in a natural language L&B, chatbots, and other communication things. And there's also OpenAI, of course, introduced this, what we call it as a codex program, which can, you can talk to a computer and then it can program for yourself. So,
I'm really excited about that one. I read about that one and it said, you could just create a web page with a menu on the side and a title at the top, and the codex thing that OpenAI created is going to automatically generate the code to do just that. Pretty incredible.
Yep.
And my first news item is about inflation hitting the tech sector. Microsoft announced on August 19th that they're going to have price hikes for Microsoft 365 and Office 365, its predecessor. And these subscription hikes are going to be as much as 25%. And that's going to take effect on March 1, 2022. It doesn't apply to the consumer and the EDU, the educational licenses, but given the millions of commercial customers of the Office suite, this is going to have a big impact on corporate IT budgets. And as you can see here on this slide, the cheapest subscriptions are the ones that are going to increase the most. So Microsoft 365 Business Basic up 20%, to $6 per user per month. Office 365 E1 up 25% to $10 per user per month. You know, nearly a third of Microsoft's revenue is tied to Office. Of its $168 billion in revenue in 2021, tied to Office. So if these increases average out to, say, 15%, that could mean an $8 billion boost to Microsoft revenues, and certainly commensurate increases in your annual software costs. And I'm hearing a lot about pricing increases, something to look out for 2022. I think customers have been looking to consolidate their software licenses, and they're reassessing the value that they're getting. So I think vendors are also looking at their pricing.
Yeah, so well, they have to justify their $2 trillion valuation, right? Especially after losing the mega Jedi project. Well, I think the big corporations are getting greedy. I mean, if you don't like it, you have a few other options: Google Suite, Apache OpenOffice, and of course, Soho. So take a look at it. For my second topic, I want to talk about this, the ICMR that you and I talked about a little bit, the Indian Council of Medical Research. They have deployed IBM Watson's virtual assistant to do the COVID-19 testing protocols, labs, and the whole nine yards. The reason I want to talk about it, even though it's a couple of months old news, maybe around May timeframe, is because we talked about the fact that, how computers can generate code, how computers can generate music, the AI algorithms can create. I'm sure you also have seen that Tom Cruise's deepfake video that he couldn't tell a difference. Those are, I call them, an innovation category, that you are researching, experimenting, you're saying the art of the possible. And this is a real possible art of the possibility happening. Imagine in a country like India, where infrastructure is, both IT and as well as the real infrastructure, for them to coordinate such a massive effort, have a system which will keep track of all the resources, or the hospital bills, or the testing labs, the procedures where they are done it, but more importantly, have some kind of a governance on top of it to enforce by applying rules, saying that, if I say something need to happen in a certain way here, how does it propagate all the way through? I'm quite excited about the project. You might want to read up on it. What do you got going on next?
Well, the FTC has resubmitted its antitrust complaint against Facebook, a case that was dismissed by a judge in June for lack of evidence. The FTC has amended that case, citing Facebook's acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp as anti-competitive, and it's asserting that Facebook unfairly blocked access to its APIs. Facebook countered just publicly in the media that the claims are an effort to rewrite antitrust laws. Of course, that's exactly what they are, led by Lina Khan, FTC chairman, who's talked a lot about how antitrust or anti-competitive laws need to change. And they're saying that it's kind of a message to business that no sale is ever final. These Instagram and WhatsApp acquisitions were approved by the government a long time ago. I'm a little surprised that the FTC is, seeking to unwind the clock rather than have a forward-looking case. Clearly, Lina Khan wants to remake antitrust laws, but if this case is dismissed, it's going to, be a blow to the credibility of the FTC and their efforts, and so we'll see. Facebook has until October 4th to file a formal response. This is going to be a long-running topic on antitrust, and I think the Biden administration's efforts to change antitrust law as we have these tech giants today. Well, that's all we have time for in this week's news summary. So let's turn to my preview of my upcoming market overview report on high-scale analytical data platforms, or as I think of it, what I did on my summer vacation. Hi, this is Doug Henshin, Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, here to talk about my next market overview report, publishing here in September 2021. It's called What to Look For in Analytical Data Platforms for a Cloud-Centric World. So what are we talking about? What's the category here? Well, high-scale analytical data platforms, we're talking about conventional relational database management systems, both on-prem and in the cloud, used to build warehouses and marts. We're talking about cloud-based data lakes and an emerging category of query engines designed to work with those lakes. And we're talking about a new category called lake houses, or converged lakes and warehouses that combine into one platform. So what are some of those market trends? Well, in addition to the emergence of some of those categories, we can say that from roughly 2010 to 2015, we saw the emergence of Hadoop. This open source platform gained traction. It changed our expectations for the scale of data we could store, the cost expectations for that, and really gave birth to the lake. 2015 to 2020, we saw a lot of databases adapting to that, creating query on Hadoop capabilities. We saw also the move to the cloud, separation of compute and storage, and certainly a lot of data science capabilities coming into these data warehouse environments, data mart environments. And then 2020 to 2025, really we're seeing this data gravity steadily moving into the cloud. We're seeing evolved data lakes, with most of these data lakes moving away from the complexity of Hadoop into more of an object storage based approach. Next up, let's talk about selection criteria. So, my first and crucial advice here is to not start with technology. I think you have to start with a clear and deep understanding of where your organization is coming from. What have your budgets for these sort of platforms been? What are your available skills to run these sorts of platforms and manage these platforms and plan and strategize around these platforms? What is the incumbent tech that you have in place? What can and can't change about that tech? What's something that can go and you want to go, and what's something that is has to remain in place for whatever reason? What's the state of existing technology that has to remain? What is the age? What is the effectiveness? What is the perceived value? What is the potential value if you're not really realizing the full value of that technology? And finally, what are your ambitions to innovate? And this is really a crucial question of C-level support. What kind of budget do you think you can get to power these platforms? What are your ambitions in terms of innovating with data-driven insights? Next, set of questions around where you're going. What is your cloud strategy? What's been your progress into the cloud? What's your commitment to going cloud? And which clouds are we talking about? What are your on-premises requirements? What are the apps and data that are subject to regulatory or data residency requirements? Stuff that has to remain in your own data centers. What's your data lake strategy? Do you have multiple lakes? Are they on-premises in the cloud? Are you moving them? Are you changing or upgrading, moving to these more modern object store-based lakes? What's your data science strategy? What's your existing and hoped for level of data science sophistication? What's the scale of the data we're talking about? What's been your progress toward operationalizing data science? And what are your preferences and expectations in terms of doing the data science work in a data lake, or trying to move some of that into database platforms? And then finally, what's your BI and analytics strategy, and the state and the need for consolidation and a refresh there? Often the BI and analytics refreshes are tied to data platform refreshes. So, once you have a good feel for where the organization stands today and where it wants to go, you can start to narrow down to the tech categories. Are we talking about a conventional data warehouse, a data mart? Are we looking at a new generation of lake combined with some sort of a query engine that runs against that lake? Are we looking at a combined lake house platform? And then you can start to look at the technologies. What are the cloud and on-premises deployment options? Is it support hybrid, or is it cloud only? What are the data science capabilities? If we're talking about database, we have a lot of data science capabilities in the database, or is that something that's going to be left to the lake and the data scientists? Who are these features targeted at? Are these features for data scientists, or are they features that, like AutoML, that might democratize things a little bit? Very important with marts and warehouses, the performance, whether this is a query engine or conventional database, analytical database. what's the sophistication of the querying it can handle, the scale of the data, the scale of the queries, the concurrency in terms of number of queries, concurrency in terms of numbers of users, and the types of workloads. Is it predictable BI and analytics type stuff with tight SLAs? Or are you going to be throwing ad hoc querying in there, kind of the wild card that might, throw off your SLA requirements? Look at deployment management. What's up to the customer? What do they have to do? Even if it's delivered as a service, sometimes you have to size these, instances and scale them versus serverless offerings. If you're having to deploy software in a cloud, are there marketplace offerings? Workload management. We're seeing a lot of AI and automation, so-called autonomous databases. How well does that perform? Is it a black box? Do you get manual override capabilities to make sure that you're meeting these workload priorities and SLAs? And then finally, those cost considerations, both the initial cost and the long-term cost. Of course, that's tied to a lot of the other aspects of the product. Now, showing it right, you start with those org and tech considerations, and then the strategy considerations that determines the candidates you're going to look at, and then you get those product attributes, look at those, and that's going to guide you to a final shortlist. And once you have that shortlist, you can get down to the reference customers and hopefully POCs with the products to try it with your data and your workloads. So, finally, I'm really looking forward to publishing this. I've been working on it all summer. It includes 14 vendors, including hybrid and multi-cloud options, including serverless and highly automated database services. It goes in depth on data science capabilities of primarily the Martin warehouse options. It's not really data science for data scientists in a lake. That's kind of a separate world. But I'm really looking forward to publishing it this month, and I hope you find it useful.
Hi everyone, Andy Thorai here. That is Thorai with an AI. I do AI-related research work here at Constellation. I'm here to talk to you about my first and upcoming research report, Incident Management. So before starting the details about incident management, I want to tell you how we do things here at Constellation. The research reports, what we do, consists of 3 different phases. The first initial report would be we create what's called a short list, in which we list a list of companies we think is appropriate for companies, enterprises to take a look at when they're looking in a specific field. In this particular case, incident management could be AI ops, could be DevOps, could be many of the other areas that I'm going to cover that are AI related, things such as ML ops and model ops and so on and so forth. So that's the initial report, and the short list for incident management is already out. The second one, what we do is what we call it as a market overview report. And this is what I'm going to be doing right now. The market overview report is about I believe I have about 11 vendors in the incident management space. And I'm going to be talking to all the 11 vendors, do a deep dive, demos, take a look at them very closely, and compare and contrast between them and saying that, who has what. My goal at the end of this exercise would be for you to take a look at the report and figure out, based on what your needs are, that you'd be able to figure out the right vendor without necessarily for you to do a POC with all of them. And then the secondary report we do off of that would be what we call it as an offering report. The offering overview report would be a little bit more deep dive of individual vendors that are responsible in that. And then, of course, along with it, I also am planning to do a bunch of thought leadership work as well in the space, incident management space, that is, in the next month or two, which will cover about how to do incident management properly. So let's talk about incident management itself. With everybody moving to cloud now, the incidents seem to be very commonplace. As I used to work for this big enterprise company, well, Big Blue. If you look at my LinkedIn, you will know. Where we used to call the critical situation as crit sit. And there is even a joke around saying that, it's a crit shit. That's what it is. Incident management is. You don't want it to happen to you. Until it happens, you're invincible. But once it happens, if your processes are not set up properly, you're going to get the full wrath of it. So when you look at an incident, what is the right way to deal with it when it happens? Whether you're set up in right way to create war rooms with enough people, or more importantly, with the right people. Do you have to go through the process of escalating from L1 to L2 to L3 to the subject matter expert to fix it? Do you even know who the service owners are? More importantly, do you even know which is the offending service, offending microservice that is? If you look at some of the blogs I've written recently, in the digital economy, almost every company has figured out how to create services fast. In other words, their DevOps is set up in such a way that you could do a quicker releases and reports. So they are set up to fail fast fairly quickly. So fail fast is working. And then probably if the fail fast is working, you also know and have the processes set up to fix fast. But the component that I see quite often with customers that's missing is the find fast. You could develop fast, fail fast, and once you find out what's broken, you can fix fast. But that component of finding fast is missing, in my view, with a lot of enterprises, as they are moving very fast to enable themselves cloud-native, cloud-based applications. The problem with that is that it involves many components. The first component being observability, to know, to watch if something is broken, and then use portions of AI ops, which in a sense would be to tell you exactly what is broken and then figure out how to fix it fast enough. So there are multiple components to the incident management, including alerting and whatnot. So I'm going to be doing my deep dive research in each of these individual areas, and there is an overarching report as well. So I want to work with you. I want to hear from you. If you're a customer executive, practitioners, I want to hear from you on what worked, what didn't work. If you're vendors, I would love to hear from you. If you're an existing vendor on my list, I want to get briefings. If you're not in my report, reach out to me and tell me why you should be in the report. I'm more than happy to revise and consider you. Would love to learn this along with you and figure out a way to make things better. Thanks for listening and good luck.
Well, welcome to Constellation Dance Card. Joining me in this preview of tech events that Constellation will be attending this fall is the ever-effervescent Liz Miller.
What's happening, Doug? Got my dance shoes on. Let's do this.
Yeah, so, the season is just getting underway, but with Delta raging, we have a number of shows canceled, like Workday Rising. Several are switching from in-person back to virtual or to hybrid formats like Dreamforce. What are your thoughts about, just what's going on with the state of conferences?
I think that last year proved that everyone could at least rethink the platform on which we were hosting things. We didn't necessarily rethink the experiences we were having. And I think that's really going to wear and tear this year, because everyone was really excited to go back to live events, right? We were like, we don't have to watch hostage videos anymore. We can actually see people. Everyone's going to get out of that mindset of a virtual event is just recorded PowerPoints. So we were all pretty happy about being let out of that virtual room. Yeah. And now we're kind of being shown back in. And I think there's going to be probably a lot more grousing to that. I think there are organizations that have really at least tried to push the needle of how they wanted to rethink what virtual could be. And I think we're going to see that happen this year, especially in some events that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. But it's going to be interesting because, Delta's going to peak and it's hopefully going to fall, but then Lambda's waiting in the wings. Who knows what else is coming up, We
might have to come up with long-term solutions to this, but
sure.
So let's dive in, that's, I should say. And we're just looking at the first couple of months. We'll have another dance card coming up for the really November, late October, December types of events. I'm looking forward to reInvent, for example, which is supposed to be live. I think that'll be a good bellwether whether those really remain live, whether that ambition just fades away. But I'll start with my first event following Labor Day is Planful Perform. This was originally supposed to be in Vegas, but they changed course out of an abundance of caution, as we'll hear a lot. They did that about 6 weeks ago. Now it's a free virtual conference set for September 14 to 15. I'm actually going to San Francisco. They're still holding their analyst relations event in San Francisco live. I'm glad they're doing that. But we'll see how it goes with this new virtual event. And then next on my dance card is Dreamforce, which it was always going to be a hybrid event. They were going to have an event for U.S. citizens. Wasn't going to be an international event. But I think that live portion has also been scaled back, and it's now set to stream on Salesforce Plus. So Liz, we've got Apple Plus, we've got Disney Plus, we've got Discovery Plus. What is Salesforce Plus? And I guess customers are probably going to ask, is my CRM subscription paying for this?
Right. Well, yes. So everyone who had to buy Sales Cloud because they got something else, welcome to what you just bought. You bought the Netflix of enterprise, of enterprise vendors. Listen, Salesforce Plus, I think, is a really interesting concept. I think that it's good. The proof is going to be in the pudding. The proof is going to be in the content, right? And the same thing can be said of Disney Plus. The same thing can be said of Discovery Plus. There are only so many times I can log on to Discovery Plus and watch Fixer Upper.
Yeah,
Same thing is going to happen.
I let go of my Apple Plus subscription after my first free year when I bought a phone. It's
like I love me my Ted Lasso, but is this going to be is it going to be Mark Benioff as Ted Lasso? Like, what are we going to do here? So I think there's going to be a whole lot of expectation because Salesforce does a really good job of getting its community excited. And that really is, Dreamforce is the perfect example of the ultimate party that got every Salesforce user really excited to be there. So I think there's going to be a lot of expectation there. I think that, I've got to hand it to Salesforce though. And we saw this first with Salesforce Connections. That was that Connections has always been a marketing event for marketers, and they really rethought it. There was like a live band. It was like, it was like Jimmy Kimmel, but hosted by Sarah. It was this really new way of presenting the content. It was fresh. They went out on a limb. Some people didn't like it. Some people loved it. Lots of mixed reaction, but they tried something new.
I don't know if I needed a cooking segment.
But I think that they tried to keep it engaging, and they're trying to think of their content more as if they were a TV production organization, trying to script the moments and flow as opposed to scripting the conversation. And I think that's where the difference is going to come in. I think the interesting thing for Dreamforce is going to be, how do we start to weave in some of those conversations that would normally happen, while you're waiting for the Obama keynote, in the massive crowd of people in the forest? How does that get replicated? We understood it couldn't get replicated last year. There's going to be less willingness to accept the things that couldn't be celebrated this year. So I think they've got a tall order with Salesforce Plus.
Yep. Okay, next up on my dance card are Tibco Now, a virtual event by the Connect, Unify, and Predict company. That's September 27 and 30. It's a free virtual event. Then Holger Mueller and I are both going to be attending the virtual Google Cloud Next 21, a virtual event set for October 12 through 14. And Holger also wanted me to mention, he couldn't be here. He's off in France or Germany or somewhere. He's going to be at HR Tech, September 28th to October 1st. He's going to be at iSolve from September 20 to 22, or attending anyways. I'm not sure which of these are virtual. VMworld, October 5 to 7, and Spling Conference, October 18 to 21. Not sure what that is, Liz. I'm going to
assume that it's some kind of dance competition. I'm just going to, in my mind, I'm going to picture that as some kind of dance competition. It makes me feel better.
Well, Liz, what do you have coming? What's on your dance card?
Listen, there's a bunch of stuff coming down the pipe, and I think Inbound by HubSpot is certainly one of those. It is if Dreamforce is the big celebration of all things cloud-based CRM and all things Salesforce, then Inbound is absolutely the same for HubSpot. It is the destination for especially marketers who have bought into that inbound kind of flywheel concept. They're wanting to go, they're learning. I think the interesting thing about inbound, even as a virtual event, it is really about learning from each other, right? It's all about sharing that information. So that really lends itself well to a virtual event. I'm going to be super honest with you though. The one that and this is an event that I get excited about, whether it is live, whether it is virtual. It was awesome last year. It's probably my favorite. I know we're not supposed to have favorite events, Doug. I know that. But this is my favorite event of the year. I can't help it. Adobe Max, because it is like this wild, crazy ride of creativity. They allow their keynote speakers to say dirty words every once in a while. So it gets racy, but it is really about rethinking. And I think for me, the thing that is so refreshing about Max is it really is letting creators be creators. It's unapologetic and I love it and I can't wait for it. But I have to double dip, Doug. I'm in big trouble. What do I do? Because it's the same exact time as
Constellation Connected Enterprise. And we're set to return to Half Moon Bay, and I'm certainly looking forward to that one, Liz. Delta be damned.
Exactly. Well, the thing I think that everyone, and it's been very clear to me as we've been looking at CCE and the lead up to it, is this is really about connecting in a safe and kind of a nice little bubble environment. The nice thing about the Ritz at Half Moon Bay is, we're not meeting in the middle of the strip, which is kind of nice. So that's, it's a very different feel. I think
we did that in July, right?
We did that in July. We already tested the waters. Everyone, we're fine. It's great.
COVID cauldron, as I call it.
Exactly. But I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. The lineup of speakers that we already have is kind of crazy. I mean, year over year, I'm always amazed with the quality of keynotes that really are going to make us think. And I don't think this year's going to be any different. I'm just going to be running down a hallway so I can watch Max virtually. And who knows, I might Photoshop something like in the middle of CCE. That'll be okay, right? Like I'll take what I learned at Max.
One of those cardboard cutouts in the audience at CCE.
Exactly. It's going to be fine. Nobody has to worry about it, but it'll be great.
All right. Well, that's all the dancing we can do for now. Hope to see you all at CCE or maybe on the online aspect of the event. Until then, that's a wrap for this edition of Constellation Dance Card. Thank you for joining, Liz.
Oh, thanks for having me, Doug.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 17 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode coming up in 2 weeks.
That's right. Join co-anchors Liz Miller and Holger Mueller on Wednesday, September 15th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at ConstellationR. Follow us on LinkedIn and follow the hashtag CRTV. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great Labor Day weekend.
Bye, folks.
First, right? Oh, switch us.
Oh, dude, you're becoming like Liz here.
No, it's Holger. It's Holger who can't hear a word you're saying. Here we go again. Didn't you have a headphone problem the last time? Andy, I kind of advised you by emails this morning. This is not storytelling. This is news, and now.
Yeah, but you talk. Hannah, I want the count of this.
Quick.
You talk more. He talked twice the time I did. What are you talking about?
No way, man. Go to the tape. Go to the time.
The Holger
Your first segment was like 4 minutes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I want the time count. Please.
Go for like 4 bullets. Quick.
We'll see.
Record. Hannah.
All right, when I edit the video, I will do an official time count.
Let her give the final count, and then we'll talk.
Okay, we will talk. Start again.
I was gonna say, do you need me to channel Holger and complain about what side I'm on? Did you want me to do that? Hannah, what side am I? No, I felt like he needed to be here for a second. Okay.
Yeah. Can
Cool.
I redo that? I said follow us on Twitter at ConstellationR.com. What is it? The Constellation, that. There's also MMMM.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 14 of CRTV. Get set for
It's episode 17, not 14.
Oh, that's what I thought I said. All right.